Hi, my name is Rich Kaczynski with the Breckness Group for Raymond James, and I have here with me two of my partners, Beth Nolan and Brett Mason, and we're going to be talking to you guys today about conversations that we have as parents with our children on personal finance. So the nice thing about the Breckness Group is we're all different ages and all different stages of life, which means all of our kids are in different ages and stages of life as well. Hopefully we're able to provide some unique perspective on this topic here today. So the first thing we're going to get into are the biggest challenges in teaching kids about personal finance. And I want to start with the digital currency age that we are in. You don't really use cash anymore. We don't really write checks anymore. I was just at the White Sox game yesterday, and you need a credit card in order to buy anything inside the stadium. So Beth, I'll start with you. How do you kind of navigate this new digital age that we're in with your children and personal finance?
Yeah. So my oldest two kids are almost 16 and almost 14. So I have a high schooler and a middle schooler. And they are definitely out and about around the city trying to spend their money, or in most cases, my money. And so being able to give them an allowance has helped me to be able to help them understand a little bit about budgeting, that you can't just go to Chipotle every day after school. You have to have some sort of, bumpers on, you do your chores, you get a little bit of money, and you've got to be able to manage that money. So we use an app called Greenlight to be able to do that. They have access on their phones to be able to flash their code, very similar to Apple Pay, and then I have the ability to be able to feed them money. Usually it's on Sundays when they get their allowance. Hopefully they're able to budget that throughout the week, but if something comes up, like they've got something going on special at school, I can easily give them, a little extra $10 or $15 here or there to be able to help them kind of make it through. Also on that app, it allows them to segregate their money between checking, or what they can spend at any point in time, and a little savings account. So currently Joe, my middle schooler, is saving up for the new release of the FIFA game. And he understood that, if he gets, $30 a week in allowance, and he's got 4 weeks until it comes out, and it's a $60 thing, that means he's got to be putting $15 a week of his allowance into a savings, so that 4 weeks from now, he's got the $60 to be able to pay for the game. So that's been a really good thing, especially for him, who is usually not very disciplined about saving his money. That's been good. The other thing I would say is I have gotten much more reticent about actually giving them cash, because I won't name names, but one of my children has the propensity to buy things that maybe they shouldn't be buying, and if they have access to cash, I can't tell where they're spending that. But if you've got it on your Greenlight, you're probably not walking into a vape store or buying things that you shouldn't be buying. So I try to actually, at this point, avoid giving them cash at all, because at least that way I've got a little control over where and how they're spending the money.
Brett, do you have anything to add on that subject?
Rich saying that we're all at different stages, another way of saying that I'm the old one here. And so I've got 4 sons and a daughter, and so my oldest son's 30, so 30, 28, 25, 22, and down to our daughter, 16. And so I've kind of seen this evolution of the digital age from early on. We didn't have it, and I've seen it all come around. And so we use the Cash App. I've got Venmo, PayPal, all the different ones. And so we're trying to encourage them, don't call me when you need money. That's on you now, because most of them are almost adults. Of course, Reagan, our youngest son, is a senior in college, so he still is requiring a little more here and there, but they're pretty good about it. But the Cash Apps, and so, hey, Dad, something happened, or we've got little things, that will come up. Hey, I need an oil change. Will you help me out with that? And so we'll just send it in. And you're right. You can look back. Here's your monthly summary, or where the money went. But that's kind of the extent of what we've used it for so far. Our youngest daughter is not really, she has her learner's permit, so she's not really out and about as much yet, and so she's usually with us, but it's not as probably prevalent as what you're seeing. Rich hopefully not seeing that yet with his 4-year-old, 5-year-old.
Yeah. So next one I talk about grocery and meal service delivery. I think as adults, we could all talk about the conveniences of Amazon, or really any online delivery service, and how nice that is. Just the other day, my 4-year-old, he just started his soccer for the fall, and he's finally old enough to have shin guards and socks. So first thing I did, went on Amazon, found the shin guards, found the socks, made sure it had the most 5-star reviews, and 16 hours later, it's sitting on my doorstep. So
instant gratification.
That's exactly right. So and he's the one who brings in the package every time we do get one. So for today's discussion, though, I do want to kind of hone more in on the grocery and meal service delivery aspect of these conveniences. So Beth, I'll I'll start with you on what challenges does that kind of bring you as a parent with your kids?
Well, I think one of the things that I learned, I don't even know that it was intentional, but I used to always go to the grocery store with my mom, and she would walk me down the aisles, and she would explain to me the difference between the generic versus the full price, Campbell soup versus the generic one that's sitting right next to it, and compare the price and compare the price per unit, price per pound. My kids haven't been in the grocery store in years, unless it's to the convenient one down on the end of the corner where I have to, like, we run out of milk and I make them go run and get it. But everything is coming to us in either Amazon or Walmart delivery or Instacart or something. So I have lost that connection of teaching them about price control, and I really think that's a huge disservice. Now, whether or not I'm thinking it's enough of something that I need to go do to actually enter a grocery store, I'm not really sure I've gotten to that point yet, but I do think that there's a lost art in some of the meal and grocery delivery services in that regard.
Yeah, we found the same thing. Again, through the progression, as the age used to go to the grocery store all the time, and living, in Mount Zion area, especially, it's easy to go there. We still go some, but the Walmart delivery thing, we pay one fee and the whole family can use it. Now, one thing we're very careful with the old adult kids is make sure your Visa is in there whenever, because you can pull down what card you're using, and every once in a while it'll happen where somebody used the wrong Visa. Hey, you guys just bought a bunch of stuff on my Visa, But the point you're saying is a good one, that it's changed. You're not going to the grocery store as much. They're busy, and just the whole dynamic has changed what you're doing. And I do think it's probably you have lost that. Is it 12 cents an ounce versus 24 cents? And does it really taste better? Is it And so some of that value shopping may be gone, and it's something that maybe we have done a disservice to our kids.
Yeah. I want to switch gears a little bit here now, and maybe if you two could just provide some helpful tips for teaching kids about personal finance. I have a 4-year-old and a 9-month-old. Anytime we go to the store, it feels like my 4-year-old just looks at the cashier and we're being gifted whatever we're buying. He doesn't quite understand that there's an exchange of currency for goods. So I'd be interested to kind of see what has worked well for you guys, or if you have any tips that you could provide me as a newer father.
Don't look at me. Brett's the one with all the experience, so we're going to let him go
well,
first.
I would just say, and I actually, when we were going to talk about this, actually, I was talking to a couple of sons, say, tell me what things you remember as we were growing up with different things. And I guess kind of thought about, I always try to teach them the value of what a dollar was, and that it's simply a tool, it's a means, and some people can get to where, worshiping the dollar is what's important. No, this is just a tool to the end. Talking about the value of work, and so our kids are always really instilled in them early that you're going to work, you're going to get a job in summertime, you're going to have to make your own money, and we didn't make them, get food and things we provide for them, but anything extra, I was like, it's on you. If you want that extra, kind of like Joe, this is something I strive for. I've got to calculate and compute what do I need to save. The value of being conservative and prudent. I think they just saw. That's what my son said. Well, you saw you, Dad, being. When we bought cars, we didn't buy new cars. We'd always buy a car as a year or two old, with just showing the difference between this car, and back then it wasn't as much, but now it's 60, 70, 80,000 new, or 25% less if you get it with 10,000 miles. So just that prudence and just the value, if you can be prudent about things, you can save yourself a lot of money. And then finally, the value of giving back. I was thinking back when the kids were really little, and they had these little piggy banks that they would provide. We get them, I think, at church or different places. But the piggy bank had 3 buildings. It had a store, it had a bank, and it had a church. And so we tried to teach the kids early that, with our faith, that you give to these things. So much goes to spending, so much goes to your savings, and so much goes to, whether it's United Way for you, or the church for us, or whatever it was, you're giving back something. I think it's important to teach them that as you are blessed with earning and with working, just that you have to pay yourself first, and then put some aside for some type of a future, potential purchase or something, but also giving back to something that's altruistic or something that's not about yourself, which some of them have gotten that. Some of them I've talked to them about, well, Dad, now we're making actually real paychecks. Yeah, and that's why I try to make it when you earned $20, giving $2 wasn't as big of a deal, but it does get to be bigger and bigger. But that's just been something that's been important to us, just to have that concept.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think along those lines, Brett, like one of the things I try to tell my kids is that your checkbook, which of course they don't really know what that is anymore, but your checkbook is a reflection of your values. And so, where you're spending your discretionary income, or even your fixed costs, like if it's really important for you to have like a really big fancy house, like your mortgage payment is going to be higher than, maybe someone who doesn't. And I've tried to instill a little bit of that in them, and just understanding like their habits become who they are as people, and the, where they spend their money is a reflection of who they are and what they value. I also, I do try to instill in them about what taxes are. And so we call it the mom tax. So we go through the drive-through, and they get an order of French fries. Like, the mom tax is coming back. I need 3 of your French fries, or like I need a bite of your Blizzard, or whatever it is that we're buying. So like they do understand like a little bit about the facts that you've got to pay your taxes, and back to the to the mom that really paid for it all.
Right.
But, so anyway, no, I mean I think that. Again, going back to the digital age, like the instant gratification that you spoke about, like that is something that I am going to have to be very conscious about, like in trying to overcome that, because it is just so easy to have Chipotle delivered to your doorstep on an evening when you don't want to cook, and I'm guilty of that every once in a while too. But it then becomes habit that Joe's my one that likes, picking on him, but he likes his food delivery, and he's like, can't we just get Chipotle tonight? And so just saying like, no, like that's an occasional thing, not an every night thing.
And even the generational thing, something I think about is that each generation in America has kind of gotten more prosperous. They've done better. And I think that's the biggest risk I think we all have, is that when we were growing up, we were just kind of middle class, maybe lower middle. My grandfather didn't have, a college education, had to work for everything. My dad had a little more, but we didn't have much growing up. And so as you do better, it's a temptation to give your kids too much, and trying to make them and equate, like you're saying, Beth, well, you've got to save for this, or you've got to work for this. And I think that's a really important distinction that I think a lot of people have lost, is that with working comes the benefits of working, and if you don't work, you don't eat. That's an extreme example, but the point is that getting to understand that link between this is what you do and this is what 40 hours or 50 hours or 60 hours, what do you work a week? That takes that much. If you go below that money, then that's how many hours that equate to of my life that I put to that. And I think we need to make sure that is instilled.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I want to wrap up with the question, when do you tell your kids, or maybe even how do you tell your kids about how much money you make? I feel like when I was a child, our parents never really talked about this. It was kind of a taboo subject. Then, of course, once they did, they followed that up with, and don't tell all your friends. So I do kind of feel like now these conversations are being happened maybe a little bit more open in families here today. So how and maybe when do you have that conversation with your children?
So I remember having this conversation with my parents, or with my dad specifically, when we got the census form. So I would have been probably, middle school, early high school, and we got like a big paper form for the census, and it came and it was asking all information about your household income. And so, Dad, do you make between, this much and that much, and check that box. And I think that was the first time I ever saw it on paper, or he had to actually answer the question. My kids ask me this a lot. I don't know if it's just because of the age that they are, or just because I just refuse to tell them. I do try to instill in them, we have enough for you to live comfortably and for us to do some fun things, but not to do everything. And that's really kind of my pat answer. And so then they kind of needle me a little bit more, well, is it more than this, or is it less than this? Is it more than that, or is it less than that? Yeah, and so then, recently with my oldest daughter, we just went through the exercise. Okay, how much does it cost to live in our house? How much does it cost to rent our space for our car, our garage and our car, and then fill it up with gas? How much, and we kind of went through what are our monthly expenses, add in the taxes, and now multiply by 12. And that I need to have at least that, because that is what keeps the lights on, the cell phones purchased, living in our house, and then think about vacation, clothes, music lessons, things like that. So I guess I probably got her in a little better of a range of where maybe I was, although, I didn't talk about sadly, I didn't talk about like, well, what am I saving? What am I saving for college? What am I saving for retirement? But it was really the first time that I tried to quantify it in a way that maybe she could understand, but I'm not ready to go there with them. I do not trust that they had the discretion to not be telling their friends. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know that's a powerful exercise, by the way. I remember when the kids were probably late high school, maybe even college, talking about, they had no concept of when they got out of school, and they heard about people getting job offers. Maybe some of their friends are getting out of college, and he got a job offer for $40,000 or $50,000, whatever it was, and they thought it was all the money in the world. And then you start taking, well, let's take the taxes out. Now you've gone from 40 to 30. And then you start taking out, you live in a big city or a small city. Decatur, you kind of complain about Decatur, but guess what? Your rent compared to living in Nashville or Dallas or Chicago is probably a third. And so you start, all of a sudden you break these down, they're like, wait, it doesn't go very far, does it? And all of a sudden that light bulb goes off. I need to choose wisely, and it does make sense. But back to the original question, I get this a lot from a lot of relationships and clients we have, even about assets. When do you share with your kids what assets you have? And I'm a firm believer, especially with assets, when it gets to the point to where you're thinking about passing on the next generation those assets in the planning stages, because I don't think they need to know too much too early and feel like, hey, I'm going to sit back. Mom and Dad got this money coming in. Why would I, work too hard? Because, and I tell clients all the time, you work for it, let them take care of themselves. So I think, what you tell them and what you make is up to your discretion. I don't tell my kids anywhere, they kind of kid about it like your kids, but I'm like, none of your business, It's been enough to help you get through college and been enough and God's provided for us, but, it's none of your business as they get older and, especially if there are any health concerns or things. I think that's when you need to make sure that there is, a plan in place and there are those discussions about here's what you have, here's what we're going to have to pass on and we're going to have to plan for.
Yeah, a lot of great points. Well, hopefully this was a fun and helpful conversation about some of our successes and failures as parents here today. We do plan on having another discussion on when you might tell your adult children about their inheritance. In that discussion, we'll hit on topics such as how to construct that family meeting, talk about legacy planning and longevity planning. But until then, we'll see you next time.